My name is Father Ted Blakley. I am the rector here at Grace Episcopal Church in Hutchinson, Kansas. And we are excited to be hosting the convention this year. The diocese is doing an experiment this year. We're going to be meeting in Dodge City instead of at Grace. And so make sure to set your GPS to Dodge City. This year, our theme of the convention is living our mission, acceptance, understanding, and fellowship. And when I think of that mission, when I think of that theme, it reminds me of, you may have seen this, but back in the 1970s, they had a mini-series called Jesus of Nazareth. It was put on by British actors. And one of the things I loved about that version of Jesus of Nazareth is how they did the story of the prodigal son. In the Gospels, it's the Pharisees who are complaining that Jesus is eating with tax collectors and sinners. And so he then tells the story of the prodigal son. But in this mini-series, they put it in a different context. Jesus has just called Peter and Andrew and James and John to be fishers of people. And then right after he calls them, he goes and calls Matthew, the tax collector, to join this fellowship of mission, this fellowship of reconciliation. And Peter's ticked. Peter hates Matthew. Matthew is the one that is taxing Peter's business. And so when Matthew invites Jesus to his house to have a party with all of his other tax collecting friends, Peter and the other disciples kind of go off to the away from the house, and they kind of mope around in their anger. And as Jesus is eating with all of his new friends, he says, I want to tell you a story. And so everybody sits down and he tells them a story about this man who had two sons. And of course, he tells the story of the prodigal son. But what's fascinating is as Jesus is telling this story, Peter slowly makes his way to the house. And at the climactic moment, when the father looks at the elder son and says, "Son, everything that I have is yours, but it's right to celebrate because your younger brother was lost and is now found. He was dead and now he's alive." Jesus is looking at Peter. And suddenly Peter is transformed. He stumbles into the gathering and he looks at Jesus and said, "I'm just a stupid man." And in that moment, Peter and Matthew become reconciled. And now they will sit down at table together. And isn't that our mission? Isn't our mission to create spaces and places of acceptance, of understanding and fellowship so that all of God's children have a place at the table? That's why we gather at convention, to support one another in this ministry of reconciliation that God has given to us in his son, Jesus. And so I'm looking forward to gathering together with my brothers and sisters, my Episcopal brothers and sisters, as we gather around the Lord's table, as we do the business of the diocese, and as we support one another in living out our mission of acceptance, understanding, and fellowship. So again, welcome to convention. Get ready and set your GPS to Dodge City.